been there. You say one thing, and suddenly your words are twisted, stretched, inverted, reduced to a caricature. They don't argue your point. They argue a version of it you never made. They call you a sexist because you said men should take responsibility. They call you cold because you questioned emotional manipulation in relationships. They call you elitist because you cited logic over outrage. And when you try to correct them, they smile. They nod. They say, "Oh, I'm just interpreting what you meant." That's not interpretation. That's sophistry. And today, we're going to disarm it. Not with rage, not with louder shouting, but with the ancient weapons of Socrates and Protagoras, two men who stood at the birth of rhetoric and saw exactly how language could be turned into a weapon. Let's begin with the man who started it all. Protagoras of Abdera, born around 490 BCE, was the first professional teacher of rhetoric in ancient Greece. He didn't teach philosophy to seek truth. He taught persuasion to win arguments. His most famous claim? Man is the measure of all things. What did that mean? It meant truth is not absolute, it's relative. To you, the sky is blue. To me, it's gray. And neither of us is wrong. It's not about reality, it's about perception. And Protagoras knew something terrifying. If truth is subjective, then the person who shapes perception controls the outcome. He taught his students to make the weaker argument appear stronger, to twist language so that even a lie could sound like wisdom. He wasn't evil, he was pragmatic. In a world of shifting power, where orators could sway juries, politicians, and mobs, the ability to manipulate language wasn't just useful, it was survival.
But then came Socrates. Socrates didn't teach rhetoric to win. He taught it to uncover. He didn't care if you looked smart. He cared if you were right. And he had a method, the elenchus, designed to expose the contradictions hidden beneath polished speech. He'd walk into the marketplace, ask a politician, "What is justice?" The man would give a confident answer. Socrates would nod, then ask another question, and another, until the man realized he didn't know what he thought he knew. Socrates didn't attack the person, he attacked the assumption. He didn't argue for a side, he exposed the foundation, and if it cracked, the whole structure collapsed. Now, here's the critical divide. Protagoras wanted you to believe what he said. Socrates wanted you to question what you believed. And that's why when you face someone who twists your words, you're not dealing with a logician, you're dealing with a Protagorean. They don't want truth, they want victory. And they've been trained, consciously or not, in the art of linguistic distortion. So, how do you fight back? Let's break it down into 5 tactical principles drawn directly from the clash between Socrates and Protagoras that will allow you to dismantle sophistry without ever raising your voice. Principle 1. Refuse to engage the distorted version. Sophists don't argue your point. They argue a straw man. They say, "You think women are inferior?" But you never said that. You said, "Traditional gender roles have historically created structural imbalances, and we need to understand them before we dismantle them." They took your nuanced, context-rich statement and reduced it to a bumper sticker. Your mistake? You tried to correct them. "You didn't hear me. I said..." And now you're stuck in their frame. You're defending a position you never held. That's exactly what they wanted. Socrates wouldn't have done that. He'd say, "You claim I said X. but I said Y. Can you show me where I said X? Not with anger, with calm precision. You don't refute the lie. You refuse to acknowledge its existence as your position. You say, I never claimed that. What I said was, repeat your original statement verbatim. If you're arguing against something else, then we're not having the same conversation. This is called reclaiming the frame. You don't fight on their battlefield. You reset the battlefield. Protagoras would say, it doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what they heard. Socrates would say, if meaning is lost, then communication is dead. And if communication is dead, then your victory is hollow. You don't need to convince the mob. You need to preserve the integrity of your words. Principle 2. Demand definitions. Always. The most powerful weapon in the Socratic arsenal is the simple question, what do you mean by that? Sophists thrive on ambiguity. They use words like toxic, entitled, patriarchal, misogynist, racist, not as precise descriptors, but as emotional grenades. They say, you're being patriarchal. You say, what do you mean by patriarchal? They say, you know what I mean. You say, no, I don't. Define it in clear, observable terms. This is not evasion. This is strategy. Protagoras taught that language is fluid, so use that fluidity to confuse. Socrates taught that language must be anchored, or it becomes meaningless. Let's say someone says, you're gaslighting me. You reply, define gaslighting for me. Is it when someone denies a fact? Or when they question someone's perception? Or when they say, that's not what happened? Now, you force them to specify. And if they can't, they're not arguing, they're labeling. And labels without definitions are just noise. Socrates didn't let anyone use abstract terms without grounding them in concrete examples. Neither should you. Try this next time. When someone accuses you of something, ask, can you give me one specific instance where I did that? Can you show me the exact words I used? Is this your interpretation or something I actually said? You're not being difficult. You're being precise. And precision is the enemy of sophistry. Principle 3. Use their words against them with their own logic. This is where Socrates became terrifying. He didn't argue from his own position. He argued from theirs. He'd say, you say truth is relative. Then, if I say the sky is green and you say it's blue, both are true? Yes. So then, if I say you're lying and you say you're telling the truth, both are true? Yes. So then, your claim that I'm distorting your words is also just your truth, and my claim of you is mine. So we're both right. Yes. Then how can you say I'm wrong? Silence. That's the moment you win. You don't need to prove you're right. You just need to show that their entire framework, the one they use to attack you, collapses under its own weight. Protagoras taught there is no objective truth. Fine, then your accusation of me is just your subjective interpretation, and mine of you is mine. So we're not debating truth. We're debating preference. And preference is not a moral claim. It's a taste. If they say you're being aggressive, you say, you're using aggressive as a value judgment. But in my culture, assertiveness is respected. In yours, it's feared. So is this about my behavior or your discomfort with it? You turn their weapon into a mirror. And suddenly, they're not attacking you. They're exposing themselves. This is not manipulation, it's reflection, and it's the most disarming tactic in human discourse. Principle 4. Never answer emotion, only structure. Sophists don't argue ideas, they provoke reactions. They use tone, they use silence, they use guilt. They say, "You don't care about people." They say, "You're so cold." They say, "How can you be so heartless?" And if you respond with emotion, you've lost, because now you're playing their game. They want you to feel ashamed. They want you to apologize. They want you to prove you're not a monster. Socrates never apologized for being logical. He never said, "I'm sorry I made you feel bad." He said, "I am not here to comfort you. I am here to help you think." So when someone says, "You don't understand my pain," you don't say, "I'm sorry you feel that way." You say, "I understand that you feel unheard, but feeling unheard is not evidence that I said something false. Can you point to a specific statement I made that was inaccurate? Or are you asking me to validate your emotion rather than engage your argument?" You separate emotion from logic. You don't deny their feeling. You simply refuse to let it dictate the terms of truth. This is the Stoic foundation. You control your judgment. You don't control their reaction. And if they want you to apologize for their misinterpretation, that's not your burden. It's theirs. Protagoras would say, "Make them feel it, and they'll believe it." Socrates would say, "If they believe it without evidence, then they were never seeking truth. They were seeking comfort, and you are not their therapist. You don't owe them emotional labor. You owe them clarity." Principle 5. End with the question, not the answer. The final move, the one that leaves them speechless, is to ask one question that they cannot answer without admitting their own sophistry. You've refuted the distortion. You've demanded definitions. You've mirrored their logic. You've refused to engage emotion. Now you end with this. So, what is your actual point? Not, "Do you agree?" Not, "Can you see my side?" But, what is your actual point? Because if they've spent 10 minutes twisting your words, they never had one. If they're truly arguing a position, they can state it clearly. But if they've been using language as a weapon, they have no coherent position. Only a feeling, only a desire to dominate. And when you ask that question, the silence that follows is deafening. Because now they have two choices. 1, admit they don't have an argument. 2, try to make one and expose themselves as the sophist. Either way, you win. You didn't shout, you didn't insult, you didn't cry, you didn't back down. You used the tools of Socrates not to crush them, but to reveal them. And that's the difference between rhetoric and manipulation. Rhetoric seeks truth through clarity. Sophistry seeks power through confusion. You are not here to win debates. You are here to preserve the integrity of language. Because when language is corrupted, so is thought. And when thought is corrupted, so is society. Protagoras gave us the power to persuade. Socrates gave us the responsibility to be honest. And today, in a world flooded with viral outrage, algorithmic manipulation, and emotionally charged misrepresentation, the most radical act is not to speak louder. It's to speak more clearly. So the next time someone twists your words, don't defend, don't explain, don't apologize. Reclaim, define, mirror, separate, question, and then walk away. Not because you lost, but because you refused to play their game.
because you know something they don't. Truth doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs to be spoken clearly and left to stand on its own. And if it doesn't survive their distortion, then it wasn't truth to begin with. You are not here to convince the confused. You are here to equip the curious. If this broke a pattern you didn't even know you were stuck in, then this video did its job. Subscribe to the Rhetoric School. We don't teach you how to win arguments. We teach you how to think so you never have to. Until then, speak clearly, think deeper, and never let a word you didn't say become the weapon used against you.